Hello guys, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're having a good day because today we have something important to discuss. So, KURO, obviously, as always, what happened this time is they revealed something that shouldn't have been revealed. Apparently, KURO is leaking CHISA's kit. I found out by taking a look at CHISA. Not really CHISA, but basically the echo that she's going to use. That echo is, right here. Trenodian Leviathan. So CHISA is coming in the next version of this game. And in 2.8, in phase 1, CHISA will be the newest resonator. She's going to be the only new resonator in the next patch. And basically what I wanted to say is we already got a good amount of information on what her kit will most likely be based around. There's basically something like a weapon, negative status she's going to use, element, damage type, and basically echo type set that she will most likely going to use. So let's go over it. So first things first, this echo for this set doesn't have any synergy with this set, Flaming Shadow. It's only here to tease upcoming character. Now from what I saw from here, I found out that the CHISA might be a Phoebe type of character. And here's why. So first things first, what this echo does is summon Collapsing Horizon, dealing 2 instances of havoc damage to nearby enemies, obtaining Core of Collapse. While it lasts, Core of Collapse deals havoc damage when the active resonator in a team deals damage. This effect can be triggered once every 0.5 seconds up to 8 times. Enemies with Havoc Bane, which no character in the game can inflict right now, enemies with Havoc Bane take 100% more damage from this effect, which means doubling the damage of. And this is going to be most likely amazing because this is like summoning echoes, so it doesn't interrupt your combo. So you can easily just cast it whenever you want. So this is kinda good. Havoc Bane increase 100% more damage from this effect. And then this is the juicy part. The resonator with this echo equipped in main slot gains 12% havoc damage bonus and 12% resonance liberation damage bonus. Now this is huge because in this scenario, we get quite a lot of information about what CHISA's kit's gonna look like. So first things first, this basically confirms that CHISA is a havoc damage dealing character, right? Also, she does liberation damage, right? So because she's havoc, already her best teammates can already be Frolova, Cantarella, not really Rocha because Rocha is kinda sus, especially because this character obviously we have like Havoc Bane included here, so she most likely will inflict negative status, so I don't think Rocha will be welcome here. But yeah, I would say because so far we have Dungeon, so that's like the best 4 stars so far already that we can use for CHISA is Dungeon. So that's already someone we have planned to be like a good sub DPS for CHISA for now is Dungeon for now, right? Next thing is she's liberation damage dealer, and what that means, of course, we know because liberation damage bonus is, you don't want to slot this on someone who doesn't do liberation damage. So CHISA will be liberation damage dealer, and what this means is that already these type of characters so far we already know that every liberation damage dealer, let me show you. So for example, Calcharo and Zhang Liao, they both deal resonance liberation damage as well as Yuno, but Yuno is more like sub DPS unit than DPS, but Calcharo and Zhang Liao are currently good liberation damage dealers. We can already see something like this where you enter the Deadly Gear state in Zhang Yao's kit is like a cube state, and then when you feel your forte, and basically how it works, this is like a regular state forte, and then this is like during liberation. We can similarly expect when she enters liberation state, and you cast the ult, you enter the new state, and now you do liberation damage. You will most likely need a lot of ER. For example, not really too much, but if she's a main DPS, you will most likely 125% energy regen. And basically, yeah, this is like Kalcharo, for example. You enter the ult, you build the 5 stacks, then you unleash that special powerful attack. And so CHISA is basically someone who might work in a similar way. She needs her ultimate to be casted, because Forte Circuit and Resin Skill, they might be okay, but Resin Skill is gonna be like probably support ability, so you can like get your like Forte stacks faster, so you can more consistency for your kit. So that's that. Now there is another thing we need to have in mind. There is something in a game that, because she's Havoc Liberation character, she also gives negative status. She is most likely going to be similar to a character called Phoebe. And what Phoebe does, she has 2 modes. First mode is Absolution, second mode is Confession. Confession state is where she inflicts a lot of Spectrofrazzle and has fast rotation. The Absolution state is where she does a lot of damage. So that is Absolution state. She's a good main DPS, Phoebe. I think that CHISA, because she's first Havoc Bane character version in 2.8, I think she's going to be similar to Phoebe. She's not going to be more among the most powerful DPSs, but she will definitely do enough damage to be like a good DPS. But then in 3.0 and 3.x update, when we get the next Havoc character, it most likely that character will be similar to Zani, where it utilizes a lot of Havoc Bane stacks, and so CHISA will be the best in slot for them. And that actually depends on what the outro skill from CHISA will be. For example, amplify incoming resonators Havoc Bane damage by 100%. Which is what we saw on Chacona for Erosion, and on Phoebe for Spectrofrazzle. Something like this. So deal spectral damage, which is powerful. Fashion field, reducing spectral res 10%, granting 100% Spectrofrazzle damage amplification, which is crazy when Spectrofrazzle inflicts damage. Interval by, you know, like it's and this lasts for 30 seconds. Which is crazy. So someone like Zani, who has fast rotation, Zani, let's be honest, Zani's situation is that Zani without Phoebe almost doesn't do damage. Does worse than even Yuno. Where Phoebe without Zani can still be a good DPS, and that is why if CHISA is going to be similar to Phoebe and actually work similar way, I'm going to be honest and say that CHISA will be actually depends on CHISA's weapon, which we're not 100% sure on, but there is actually a big tease in game, which we're going to be talking about soon. Basically her weapon, what is her weapon going to be? Is it going to be Broadblade, Pistol, Sword, Rectifier, Gauntlet? And yeah, I'm gonna be honest, first things first, let's go over every other weapon that I don't think she will have. I don't think that she will have any other weapon besides Sword, and here is why. For example, let's see Broadblade, and this is actually a big tease on what these units will be. So CHISA, Galbrena, Chuyan, Augusta, and Yuno, they were teased and drip marketed at the same time. They immediately made announcement of these new battle pass weapons. But these are like basically Septimont weapons for the battle pass. You can only get these weapons from battle pass, but I will talk in a like future video. I will soon make a video this week on why you should never go for these weapons. But basically for the science, right, this weapon gives you a lot of, at a R5, this is a broad blade. It gives you attack percent and heavy attack damage bonus. And for those who don't know, Augusta, who came last patch, right after this was released, she is a broad blade user and she does heavy attack damage. And her kit entirely does heavy attack damage. And so this weapon is basically her best 4-star that you can place on Augusta is this Aureate Zenith. So this broad blade is best for her. But Augusta is one of those who were drip marketed alongside CHISA, right? So next thing we're going to go over is a sword. But again, because CHISA most likely will be a sword, we'll skip on this one for now. Solar Flame. This is a gun, a pistol, and it says following. It does give a crit rate, but what it says is dealing basic attack or heavy attack damage increases attack by 7.2% and grants 7.2% heavy attack damage bonus for 7 seconds, stacking up to 4 times, which can be quite a lot. But basically the point here is attack again, which any unit can use, and heavy attack damage bonus for dealing heavy attack 4 times in a row. There is one unit in a game that can easily apply all of this, and besides this character that I'm about to tell you about, basically no other pistol user in a game can benefit from heavy attack damage bonus. And the unit I'm talking about is currently on banner unit called Galbrena. She's the only one who can benefit from this weapon to the full extent, because she does heavy attack damage through first 3 basic attacks. And so she can easily stack this up to max during her entire rotation, because she constantly does heavy attack damage, then echo skill damage, and so forth and so on. And so she can easily apply the entire effect, and she's the only unit who can apply this effect. Now, the next thing is that she's also, Galbrena was also alongside Augusta and CHISA, right? So yeah, this is like second example of these weapons actually foreshadowing leaking the kits of the future banners. They're like drip marketed. Now let's go to the gauntlets. For the gauntlets, we got in the same set for the battle pass weapons, Ether Strike. This one gives critical damage, fine, but it says casting Liberation increases attack and grants 34 basically Resonance Liberation damage bonus for 15 seconds. And basically what this means is that one of the new characters who came out, her gauntlet user, if they do liberation damage, they're gonna use this. Now there was before that in 1.0 there was someone like Zhang Liao use the gauntlets. He does liberation damage, but again this was released right after drip market, and guess who this is for? It's Yuno. And Yuno, it's idle resonance liberation damage dealer that uses gauntlet. What a coincidence. And she's also best in slot for Augusta team. So what this means basically is this weapon is for Yuno. Then gun is for Galbrena. Then we have something like Broadblade that is for Augusta. So that's already 3 weapons that are teased, and the teased the kits, what kits are going to be. Only weapon so far that didn't get their DPS is are 2 weapons. First one is Radiant Dawn, which says casting resonance skill increases attack by blah 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 and grants basic attack damage bonus. This is good for Encore because she uses resonance skill, but this is not the point. This weapon so far doesn't have a user. Many people thought Chuyan is going to use this weapon, but again he uses sword. But now we say, oh, but CHISA might be a rectifier user, but again she seems like she uses a broadblade or a sword. And from the echo we saw earlier, she's a havoc damage dealer and resonance liberation damage dealer. So let's be honest, because this rectifier is supposed to foreshadow the upcoming unit, this weapon doesn't foreshadow CHISA, because this is basic attack damage bonus, and CHISA does liberation. So let's go over sword. What does the sword say? Here it is, feather edge. So critical rate, fine. Casting resonance liberation, increase attack, and grants resonance liberation damage bonus. I don't think I need to explain what this weapon foreshadows. I think it's pretty obvious. There is no let's be straightforward first before we talk about CHISA. There is currently no DPS in game, actually no unit in the game that does solely liberation damage. There is a sword user. There's someone like Havoc Rover, but his kit is versatile. He does resonance skill damage, he does basic attack damage, and he has that big nuke from his ult that is considered liberation damage. So, but that alone, one attack from his kit scales of liberation. Then we have Chang-Li, who also scales of the liberation. Her ult though, but she is usually resonance skill damage dealer, and she does more resonance skill damage. So this weapon is not fully utilized on any of those two characters. Then we have Dan Jin. She does more resonance skill damage and heavy attack damage, and liberation damage is like nice, but is not like good enough to benefit quite a lot from this. So that's another character who doesn't really need this weapon. But then we have someone like Kartetia, and Kartetia is someone who does liberation damage, and her liberation damage on her nuke is actually big. It's actually 200k damage in one shot. It can benefit from this, but the problem is she doesn't need that much critical rate or critical damage on her main stat. She wants more HP, and because she scales off of HP, the second part of this ability, of this effect, is attack buff that doesn't actually does anything for Kartetia. And resonance liberation damage is actually the one singular hit of the Kartetia. Yes, it's powerful, but she basically does almost equal amount of basic attack damage, and so I don't really think this is a good weapon for Kartetia. She wants HP, she wants aero damage more than specific. So even Kartetia can't really utilize this weapon to the full extent. And let's be honest, those are basically the only sword users that do actually give high liberation, that do highest amount of liberation damage, but again doesn't fully utilize potential. Here's my prediction. Because this weapon gives attack percentage, this confirms that CHISA is, without a doubt, she scales off the attack stat, and so she also does liberation damage as a Havoc DPS, inflicts Havoc Bane, and so this weapon basically tells us that because this weapon increases liberation damage bonus, and there is no hardcore focused sword user in a game that's solely focused, there is none. There's only Calcharo, which is Broadblade, and Zhang Liao, which is Gauntlet, and I guess Yuno, which is also Gauntlet. So I'm going to be honest, this is clearly showing that CHISA's weapon will actually be a sword. And here's one slight issue. This weapon is a big no-no. So you will never equip this weapon, even as a low spender, and I will explain you why in the next video, why these weapons are kinda scam and not really worth getting. And unless you already took the bait and got these weapons and leveled them up, do not go for them, do not invest in them, because they're not really good and I will explain this in the other video. But basically what these weapons are here for, to actually give us early information on what the incoming character's kit will be. So with this sword, we can already tell CHISA being liberation damage dealer, this says a lot. This confirms basically that CHISA is a sword user, and because of that we need to look at some of our options that we can use right after pulling CHISA. And so what are those options? Now, as you can see, these are all of the 5-star swords in the game. First one is the Firestorm. This one is a big skip. This one doesn't work on any sword user besides Katetia, or maybe potentially some future HP damage dealer that is sword user, maybe, but that time will be far from here. So for now only Katetia can utilize this weapon. It's her best in slot after all. Black Pat's Pledge, this is energy regen, so this is not good from the start. It has a good at main attack. It gives resistance skill damage, which after healing, which she probably won't be able to use this buff, even most likely not even benefit from this buff in the first place. And then because this is solely for Air Rover, you won't be able to even give buffs, so this weapon is also even worse. Unflickering Valor, energy regen again. I don't really think it's worth getting for CHISA, of course. And it's like casting liberation. Yeah, it's not really that good. I'm gonna be so yeah. Next thing is Red Spring. It says when dealing basic attack damage, Wilders gains basic attack damage, blah blah blah. But basically, basic attack damage increasing weapon that's not really a good alternative option. It's only a stat stick. Next one is Blazing Brilliance, and it gives a good amount of critical damage. Then we get the attack percentage. We get it gives 4% resistance skill damage bonus up to 14 stacks, which is powerful and good. But to be honest, this weapon is again not really giving any major buffs to CHISA. However, next weapon, which is the last 5-star on this list, is Emerald of Genesis. And I'm going to be honest, thanks to this weapon, I think CHISA might be, depending on how her kit will exactly work and how reliant will she be on some other teammates, we'll see exactly if she's like big investment, high investment requiring high investment, or she requires low investment to work efficiently. At the max level you get critical rate, which is amazing, high base attack, then energy regen 12.8%, which is amazing, because let's be honest, CHISA, if she does liberation damage in her kit, she will most likely do it from activating her liberation. And what every character in a game that does high liberation damage, they usually do what? They rely on casting their liberation so they can start doing the entire DPS. And if that's the thing, if that's the way they wanna go with CHISA, which is most likely the logical way to go about it, you will need stable energy regen. This will be your #1 priority before anything else, otherwise your rotation would not go as smooth. If she's a sub DPS, this is gonna be less of an issue, because then you can use Moonlight Clouds with 10% energy regen, which is very nice. So far, this and the Static Mist, which is the other 5-star standard weapon, are basically the only 2 weapons you wanna pull from standard weapon banner. And this weapon is basically good for, it's basically universal for every single sword user. And the reason why is you get energy regen, which is for free, which is usually very good, especially for someone like CHISA, who is, again, based on this sword, it's confirmed to be a sword user, because this increases liberation damage bonus, which is not really as useful for any character on the roster necessarily, but for CHISA, being completely liberation damage dealer, this confirms that she will most likely be the one to use this weapon. If that's the case, she's a sword user. So the best alternative option is not this, because you need 5 ranks in order to like get few percent better results than this one, like 3% more damage maybe at the R5, but we this at R1 already. So you will always want Emerald of Genesis, and it's almost free and you can get it. And next one is when a resonance skill is cast, increase attack by 6%, stacking up to 2 times, basically 12% extra attack, 12% maybe 13% energy regen, critical rate, and high attack. Basically Emerald of Genesis will be amazing choice for CHISA, but again, so far when it comes to teammates, for a weapon, we already know Emerald of Genesis is an amazing free-to-play option. So for the weapon, weapon-wise, she has amazing free-to-play option, unless she scales off something else and not attack. This is probably her best alternative. She'll most likely come out and release with her signature as every single unit in the game. So basically what we need to go over is basically someone like, I would say, what in this game would be interesting team at the release of CHISA would be, in my opinion, these two characters to make a Havoc based team. Take a look at the outro skill. And outro skill says amplify incoming resonators Havoc damage by 20% and resonance skill damage by 25% for 14 seconds. So yeah, here is Dungeon. Dungeon, she has her outro skill that amplifies Havoc damage. So incoming resonator has their Havoc damage amplified by 23% for 14 seconds. So basically this can be off release very good sub DPS for CHISA, again if she's a main damage dealer. And so with this in mind, I would say get your dungeons ready to level 90, give them overture or something, whatever. Just make sure they're like equipped as a sub DPS, and you can like slot her with Shorekeeper, Dungeon, CHISA, or Verina, Dungeon, CHISA can work, I think, in my opinion. And with this is basically Havoc damage amplification, which means any resonance skill damage, any Havoc heavy attack damage, basic attack damage, and the resonance liberation damage as well will be amplified by 23% because of Dungeon. So you at least get universal amplification for the entire kit, no matter what their damage type is. So this is amazing in case CHISA ends up being kind of restrictive in terms of like how many teammates she can have. There's another teammate that we can have, and these ones are a little bit more expensive, if I might say, and one of them got expensive over time. Two other units that actually amplify more than Dungeon and amplify liberation damage solely are two characters. Janshin, she amplifies liberation damage by 38% right here. Incoming resonator has their liberation damage amplified by 38%. So this is basically interesting and very kind of powerful for CHISA, because she is most likely going to be liberation damage dealer. So that's one thing. But there is one problem with Janshin. Janshin is kind of slow, and she's slow until you get S2. And what that S2 looks like, so first additional copy you get from Janshin, which you get one copy, now you have S0. At S1, when you get have two copies gained from Janshin, you get double amount of forte stacks generated from basic attacks, which is fine. Then S2 means you need 3 copies of Janshin in order to be at S2, and what this gives you is extra calming air resonance skill usage, which means you can use it 2 times instead of once. This is actually an amazingly valuable sequence. Yeah, it says only additional use time for resonance skill, but this actually gives you that last bit of concerto you always miss for rotating out and outroing into your next character. And the problem with Janshin is that she's a 5-star. And 5-star standard unit that you can get is only through random standard banner using standard pulls, but you don't want to use standard pulls on the character banner. You want to use it on a standard weapon banner to get Static Mist, Pistol, and Emerald of Genesis Sword, and then get eventually more copies of them. So you don't want to spend those pulls on a character banner for a standard banner. And so basically the only way to get her will be from losing 50-50. But again, you cannot choose which character you can get from lost 50-50. You get it randomly. So you need to randomly get all 3 copies of Janshin in order to have her being optimal. While Danjin does 15% less amplification but rotates way faster, most likely twice as faster than Janshin. So I would say that is definitely something to keep in mind if you want to use Janshin. Make sure she's at S2, otherwise you will struggle rotating with her and you might spend more time on Janshin than you might on CHISA, which is kinda disaster if you ask me. So that's one thing. Janshin at S2 is definitely a good choice for CHISA. Now next unit that is also more expensive, got more expensive over time, is none other than Yinlin. And this character looks hot, she looks amazing, she's a amazing unit, but the problem with Yinlin is that she got overshadowed by a lot of other units and sub DPSs because she's basically the second character. She was released really early on in OG days, and so her kit is not really advanced at the level of currently available characters like Yuno, like Brent. Like, we have a whole fusion team who works amazingly in synergy, and they're all basically sub DPSs. They don't do nearly as much damage as actual hardcore hyper carry main DPSs. But someone like Yinlin, she's a sub DPS for Zhang Liao and Calcharo, and so her outro buffs electro damage and it amplifies it by 20%, and Resonance liberation damage amplified by 25% for 14 seconds. And from my opinion, she also has another quote-unquote buff, but basically it's not a buff, it's more of it's an off-field damage, it's coordinated attack. So basically when Yinlin judgment points are full, basically her forte, heavy attack is replaced with the enhanced one, and now she can activate the enhanced heavy attack, consume all judgment points, which is forte circuit, and deal damage. When it hits a target marked with Sinner's Mark, which is basically any enemy that is actually touched by your basic attack, you basic attack into them or liberation on them, they have Sinner Mark, and then you activate this special 40 circuit heavy attack, and then they get converted from Sinner Mark to Punishment Mark, and then this Punishment Mark is what actually triggers the coordinated attack damage, which lasts for 18 seconds, and once per second. What the punishment mark gives is the target marked with punishment mark, when it takes damage, Judgment Strike will fall, triggering coordinated attack to all targets marked with punishment mark, dealing electro damage. You can trigger this one up to 1 time per second. Judgment Strike deals resonance skill damage. Basically what this means is you get a 40 circuit, and any enemy that you attack with basic attacks or liberation, we have Sinner Mark, and then when you do that, so basic attack, resonance liberation, and intro skill apply Sinner's Mark to the target. So yeah, basically that's it. And off-field damage and Judgment Strike is basically you can do up to 18 of them. So basically what you would do, you will outro from Yinlin into CHISA, and now activate CHISA's ult, and now do your liberation damage that is amplified by 25%. and for 14 seconds, and your Yinlin is doing some off-field damage to like increase like the DPS of your CHISA. So that's like fun way to use Yinlin if you're someone who's like a veteran player. If you like played when Yinlin was out, or maybe if you already have Yinlin. And the reason why I'm saying she's a expensive unit is because she's not a DPS, and she's a sub DPS, and she doesn't really need her weapon, but without her weapon, her coordinated attacks are not really doing that much damage. Her main weapon is String Master, and that rectifier weapon is actually the best rectifier in the game for DPSs, so it's a very valuable weapon. But again, if you don't have Yinlin, then bad news, because she's too expensive to get. The reason why is because her value decreased so much because other units are just performing better. She's not bad unit. She can still perform, she can still give you a lot of value, but the problem is if you don't already have her, it's actually too expensive to get her and much cheaper to get any other unit for the same price, because every other unit as a sub DPS holds more value for your account than she does, because standards, the meta, everything has changed. So someone like Yinlin has outdated kit. That's actually correct way to put it. It's more outdated than Power Crypt, because she can still deal decent damage for sub DPS. She can give you a lot of value. She looks amazing, but the problem is the looks and aesthetics in this game don't give you the big results. So if you want to clear endgame with CHISA that does liberation damage, I think the best bet is Dungeon, Shorekeeper, Dungeon, and Verina. And your CHISA obviously is going to be your main DPS, if she's a main DPS. If not, then I guess she's a big skip, especially if she inflicts Havoc Bane, which I think they will not do it. They will not make her inflict Havoc Bane and be just a sub DPS, because they'll actually be one of the most terrible decisions to make. Dungeon, which we already said, she amplifies Havoc damage. Then again, Dungeon also has another buff hidden in her S6, which is easy to get because she's a 4-star. Heavy attack Chaos Cleave, which is her forte, easy accessible. Increases attack of all team members for 20% for 20 seconds. So 20% more attack for entire team, and because she's a sub DPS, and usually all the rotations in the game from DPSs are at maximum, are lasting for like 14 seconds at max, sometimes even 13 seconds. So DPSs are not really gonna run out of these buffs, so this 20% is the entire DPS rotation. So yeah, prepare your dungeon if you wanna pull CHISA in 2.8. And those are my honest thoughts on CHISA and what she's gonna work with. For now, 100% sure Dungeon and Shorekeeper, Dungeon Cantarella, or Dungeon Verina will be amazing teammates, are going to be amazing teammates for CHISA. Now, depending on what CHISA will do, it might be also good to run someone like Cantarella and Frolova, because Frolova also amplifies Havoc damage by 20% and heavy attack damage by 25%. CHISA's team might be amazing with Frolova and Cantarella, but because not many people have Frolova, we're focused on someone like Augusta, Yuno, then CHISA situation. So I would say, from that perspective, from teammates' perspective, yeah, you can pair, I think, Cantarella and Frolova. If you don't have Frolova, then Dungeon with Cantarella, Verina, or Shorekeeper, and that should take care of your CHISA. If you for some reason have a Yinlin because you're OG player, you can easily just slot Yinlin. I think you will do fine, especially on a single target content and bosses in TOA. So you should be fine with CHISA and Yinlin and Shorekeeper, or that's why Verina and Shorekeeper are so good. But yeah, and depending on what the double DPS potential is for CHISA, so far for Phoebe, Zani, and Katetia double DPSing was not really the best way to use them. But again, in their hyper carry, they were amazing. So I would say, I don't know if she's going to be double DPS character. We'll see. Overall, that's it about teammates. For weapons, we already discussed. She's going to be a sword user, and the best sword you can prepare right now is Emerald of Genesis. Make sure to prepare your Emerald of Genesis, and this weapon will be used on CHISA. And for teammates, your dungeon will 100% be someone viable for CHISA. Unless you have Frolova, then you can slot Frolova Cantarella on CHISA, and yeah, I'm gonna be honest, CHISA seems amazing in my opinion. So yeah, that'll be it for today, guys. In my opinion, I think CHISA as a liberation damage dealer doesn't have too many options, but there are good free-to-play options for weapon, thank goodness, and there's a good teammate like dungeon that you can slot in if you have nothing else. So yeah, overall, from these current infos from damage type, she has partner, even though she's a liberation damage dealer, just because she's Havoc. And yeah, in my prediction, most likely with her release we'll get new 3-piece Sonata set that will most likely be tailor-made for CHISA. Now potentially, right, we can see if that 3-piece set actually buffs any liberation damage dealer. We might see some buffs for our boy Calcharo or Zhang Liao, but again, we'll see what happens. So far we can continue to get more informations. We can expect CHISA's drip market in like few days from now, so yeah, make sure to stay tuned. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you find it informative, and if you did, make sure to like and subscribe, and see you in the next one.